You all know him, the brilliant inventor of the AC generator, Nikola Tesla. But to say he only invented the AC motor is like saying George Washington was just a president, or that Napoleon was merely a general. It's a massive understatement. Tesla was one of the last great independent inventors, a true genius, but also a visionary, a dreamer, if you will. Everything he imagined, he brought to life, from alternating currents to X rays, from remote control to wireless communication. Any one of these achievements would make someone a legendary inventor. But Tesla was more than that. His greatest vision was to give the entire world access to free energy. Energy transmitted wirelessly to anyone, anywhere, without the need for the tangled web of wires we rely on today. Now you might say, well, he must have failed. It's been over 100 years and nothing like that exists. But you'd be wrong. Tesla wasn't stopped by the laws of physics. He was stopped by the will of one powerful man. Legend has it, Nikola Tesla was born at the stroke of midnight during a fierce lightning storm. Born in the Austrian Empire on July 10th, 1856, Tesla was the fourth of five children. But Tesla was unlike other children. He was tall, gaunt, and full of ambition, already fascinated by the mysterious force of electricity. Tesla had the opportunity to attend the prestigious Imperial Royal Technical College in Graz. It was here that he first encountered the DC motor. He immediately found it flawed and inefficient, as it required a commutator to transform naturally alternating currents, AC, into direct current, DC, before it could be harnessed. After 3 years in Graz, he moved to Paris to work for the Continental Edison Company. It was there that he developed his first major invention, the AC motor, or alternator. Tesla had an extraordinary photographic memory. He could visualize complex machines entirely in his mind and even modify individual components as if they were physically in his hands. Eventually, Tesla moved to the United States, where he tried, unsuccessfully, to pitch his AC motor to Thomas Edison. But soon after, he partnered with George Westinghouse and created the first practical alternator. Tesla received patents for his invention, but controversy arose when other inventors claimed to have created the alternator before him, leading to years of legal battles. Around the time the War of the Currents began, DC versus AC, and here, in my opinion, Tesla made his first crucial mistake. Unlike Edison or Westinghouse, Tesla was not a businessman. He was a pure inventor, and money did not interest him. As a humanitarian, Tesla wanted the world to benefit from his invention, so instead of keeping the royalties on his AC patents, he relinquished them entirely to Westinghouse. While there were strategic reasons for doing so, this decision ultimately cost Tesla an estimated $300 million in today's money, something that would come back to haunt him later. Over the following years, Tesla developed countless inventions and became a showman, dazzling crowds from New York to London to Paris with public demonstrations. But these weren't your typical lectures. Tesla showcased his AC motors, a variety of electric bulbs, and most famously, the Tesla coil. In May 1891, Tesla agreed to present his work on high frequency phenomena during a 3-day symposium of the American Institute of Electrical Engineers, or AIEE. This became a historic moment. Tesla didn't just offer a spectacle of electrical wonders, he outlined what he called fundamental and far reaching principles.
We are whirling through endless space with an inconceivable speed. All around us, everything is spinning, everything is moving, everywhere is energy. There must be some way of availing ourselves of this energy directly. Then, with the light obtained through the medium, with the power derived from it, with every form of energy obtained without effort, from stores forever inexhaustible, humanity will advance with giant strides.
With this powerful declaration, Tesla made his intentions clear: to harness what he called free energy and to distribute it wirelessly across the planet for the advancement of society. He had already made his first breakthrough, the Tesla coil. Exhausted tubes held in the hands of Mr. Tesla appeared like a luminous sword in the hand of an archangel representing justice, said one reporter. How did he do it? It's actually simpler than it seems. Tesla's coil created extremely high voltages and frequencies with very low currents. Think of electricity like water in a river. The amount of water is the currents, the amps, and the incline of the river is the voltage, measured in volts. Tesla's machine was like a steep waterfall with just a small stream flowing through it. High voltage, low currents. These high frequencies allowed energy to travel through the air. To transmit wireless energy, you must create an electric field between two metal plates. This requires two things: high voltage and high frequency. It all starts with a high frequency alternator, essentially an AC generator. This power is stored in a capacitor and released only when a certain voltage is reached, triggered by a spark gap. This produces a powerful oscillating circuit that increases the frequency. The electricity then flows to a primary coil made up of just a few turns of wire. As you may know, electric currents in a coil generates a magnetic field. This field induces a current in a nearby secondary coil, a process called mutual inductance. The secondary coil has many more turns of wire, which further increases the voltage. At the top is a terminal, or top load. Tesla sometimes used two metal plates, or in other designs, one plate with the other terminal grounded. He called the first a Type 2 transformer and the second a Type 1. Tesla explained,
The ideal way of lighting a hall or room would, however, be to produce such a condition in it that an illuminating device could be moved and put anywhere, and that it is lighted no matter where it is put, and without being electrically connected to anything. I have been able to produce such a condition by creating in the room a powerful, rapidly alternating electrostatic field. For this purpose, I suspend a sheet of metal a distance from the ceiling on insulating cords and connect it to one terminal of the induction coil, the other terminal being preferably connected to the ground. Or else I suspend two sheets, each connected with one terminal of the coil and their size carefully determined. An exhausted tube may then be carried in the hand anywhere between the sheets or even a certain distance beyond them. It remains always luminous.
in Tesla's mind, all his discoveries were converging into one grand project. In 1893, he said,
I firmly believe that it is practicable to disturb by means of powerful machines the electrostatic conditions of the earth, and thus transmit intelligible signals and perhaps power. First, we must know what capacity the earth is and what charge it contains.
He also speculated that the Earth was probably a charged body insulated in space and thus had a low capacity. At the time, this was a mere speculation, but today, Tesla has once again been proven right. The Earth is indeed a charged body, insulated in space, in part due to the solar wind striking the atmosphere. We now know that the ionosphere, a conducting layer about 50 kilometers above Earth's surface, is electrically active. This conducting layer makes the Earth negatively charged, and the difference in charge between the Earth and the ionosphere is significant, approximately 40,000 volts. This creates a resonant cavity known today as the Schumann Cavity. It was officially discovered in 1952, but Tesla had already grasped its principles 6 decades earlier.
Surrounding the Earth, there's a cavity that resonates at about 8 cycles per second. And this cavity exists between the Earth we're standing on now and the bottom of the ionosphere, about a 60-kilometer gap. And this three-dimensional resonant cavity, in that cavity, you can transmit power, electromagnetic energy, at 8 hertz with almost no attenuation. The Schumann cavity is pumped or fueled at this time with megawatts of power from the lightning strokes that are occurring many times a second on a worldwide basis.
He realized that the air at higher altitudes was thinner and therefore more conductive. And indeed, everything described here still applies to how we transmit radio waves today. This became his first theory for wireless energy transmission, but Tesla also envisioned a second method, through the Earth itself.
If ever we can ascertain at what period the Earth's charge, when disturbed, oscillates with respect to an oppositely electrified system or known circuit, we shall know a fact, possibly of the greatest importance to the welfare of the human race. I propose to seek for the period by means of an electrical oscillator or a source of alternating electric currents.
Since Earth is a charged and conductive body, Tesla believed it was possible to transmit electricity through it by alternating charging and discharging it, creating a flow of currents. But to do this over large distances, he needed resonance. Resonance is what reduces electrical resistance. In other words, the more resonant a system is, the more efficient it becomes. To transmit electricity through the Earth, Tesla needed to determine the planet's natural frequency. Though he had already lit bulbs at a distance of 26 miles, Tesla wanted to scale up. So, on May 18th, 1899, he headed west to Colorado Springs. He had 3 main objectives. 1. To develop a transmitter of great power. 2. To perfect the individualization and isolation of transmitted energy. And 3. To study the laws of current propagation through the Earth and the atmosphere. On his newly acquired land, Tesla built a barn-like laboratory, 60 by 70 feet, with a retractable roof and a tall metal mast topped up with a 30-inch copper-covered wooden sphere. This elevated terminal acted as an isolated conductor, accumulating electrical charge. The height of the mast could be adjusted to change the coil's frequency. Inside the barn, Tesla constructed the largest Tesla coil ever built, 15 meters or 50 feet in diameter. He called it the Magnifying Transmitter. Let's first talk about the machine's characteristics. This was, in essence, a Tesla coil on steroids. It could generate upwards of 12 million volts and reportedly produce tens, even hundreds of thousands of horsepower. It operated at frequencies ranging from 50 to 150 kilohertz. This behemoth operated by passing alternating currents through a 50,000 volt Westinghouse transformer, which charged 14 oil filled capacitors. Once a specific voltage was reached, the energy was released through a spark gap, creating a high frequency oscillating current. This current was then transferred to the primary winding in a single turn of heavy cable buried at the base Tesla referred to as the fence. Surrounding this setup was the secondary coil, a massive 50-foot diameter, 9-foot tall spiral of 50 turns of wire. All this alone would constitute a standard Tesla coil, but this was no ordinary setup. Tesla added an extra coil at the center of the structure, making this configuration something truly unique. According to Wikipedia, the secondary winding of the transmitter is visible at left, as the 60-foot diameter circular fence surrounding all the other coils. A 50 kHz radio frequency current in this coil creates a magnetic field that induces a high voltage in all the other coils by electromagnetic induction. The 20-foot tall output resonance coil of the transmitter at the right. Its parasitic capacitance causes it to act like a resonant circuit. It is tuned to the frequency of the secondary, generating millions of volts, which creates a large discharge of streamer arcs at its top. The corona discharges visible at the top of all the other coils show they are also generating high voltages. The principle of the extra coil wasn't fully understood until the 1970s, so don't feel bad if it's still confusing. From what I've gathered, the extra coil provides a resonance boost, and because it's more independent from the primary and secondary coils, it can oscillate more freely. Tesla himself wrote, "Extra coils enable the obtainment of practically any EMF, voltage, the limit being so far remote that I would not hesitate to produce sparks of thousands of feet in this manner." Tesla also needed a proper ground connection. At first he connected the secondary coil to a metal water pipe, but this didn't work well, so he placed it with a 12-foot deep copper plate buried in the earth. In his Colorado Spring notes, Tesla talks about how he had to constantly water the surrounding ground to reduce resistance and improve the signal's ability to enter the earth. He observed that the best ground connections were located above aquifers, a detail that becomes very important. And if you stick around for future videos, you'll see exactly why. If you made it this far, thank you very much. You might as well subscribe because there's a lot more to Tesla's story. And yes, I am even going to tie him to the Great Pyramid. Sounds crazy now, but trust me, stick around and it will all make sense. Now, back to Tesla. He conducted his first experiments at Colorado Springs on June 15, 1899. Strange phenomena began almost immediately. At night, sparks appeared beneath the feet as he walked on the ground. Butterflies flew in spirals. Horses became terrified, seemingly feeling the electricity in their hooves. Light bulbs 60 feet away shattered spontaneously. Tesla was pushing the absolute limits of human understanding. I would argue that at that time, he was deep in the wilderness of discovery while everyone else was still stuck on the trail a mile behind. Then came Tesla's most important discovery.
It was on the 3rd of July, the date I shall never forget, when I obtained the first decisive experimental evidence of a truth of overwhelming importance for the advancement of humanity. A dense mass of strongly charged clouds gathered in the west, and towards the evening a violent storm broke loose, which after spending its fury in the mountains was driven away with great velocity over the plains. Heavy and long persisting arcs formed almost in regular time intervals. My observations were now greatly facilitated and rendered more accurate by the experiences already gained. I was able to handle my instruments quickly and I was prepared. The recording apparatus being properly adjusted, its indications became fainter and fainter with the increasing distance of the storm until they ceased altogether. I was watching in eager expectation. Surely enough, in a little while the indications again began, grew stronger and stronger, and after passing through a maximum, gradually decreased and ceased once more. Many times, in regularly recurring intervals, the same actions were repeated, until the storm, which, as evident from simple computations, was moving with nearly constant speed, had retreated to a distance of about 300 kilometers. Nor did these strange actions stop then, but continued to manifest themselves with undiminished force. Subsequently, similar observations were also made by my assistant, Mr. Fritz Lowenstein, and shortly afterwards several admirable opportunities presented themselves, which brought out still more forcibly and unmistakably the true nature of the wonderful phenomenon. No doubt whatever remained. I was observing stationary waves.
With this, Tesla knew it was possible to transmit energy through the Earth without concern for distance. Stationary waves form when energy waves of the same frequency collide. What's important here is that Tesla detected these waves at a distance long after the storm's direct energy had passed. This indicated that resonance had been achieved. That meant Tesla could potentially replicate the effect and use it to transmit energy worldwide. A stationary wave contains nodes and antinodes, essentially the peaks, troughs, and stationary points of the wave. To create them, Tesla needed to first determine the Earth's natural resonance frequency, which he believed to be around 12 Hz, and was again found to be correct. With the magnifying transmitter, he could inject high voltage energy into the Earth, generating currents. And here's where it gets interesting. As with any current flowing through a conductor surrounded by an insulating medium, an electrical disturbance is also created in the adjacent material of space. In Tesla's system, this was a surface wave, a wave traveling along the interface between ground and air. In essence, the stationary waves he had detected during the lightning storm.
By impressing upon it current waves of certain lengths, definitely related to its diameter, the globe is thrown into resonant vibration like a wire, forming stationary waves.
This about sums up Tesla's concept for transmitting energy through the Earth itself. Of course, we could go on for hours explaining every detail, but I think you've got the gist of it. But Tesla wasn't done yet. He had one more trick up his sleeve: transmission through the Schumann Cavity. I've read and listened to many explanations of this, but nearly all of them overlook a crucial detail. For the purpose of energy transmission, the usable part of the cavity only begins about 5 miles in altitude, where the air becomes thin enough to be more easily ionized and then transmitted. As you may know, air is typically an insulator. So, how does lightning happen? Well, if you answered plasma, you're absolutely correct. Tesla realized that if the potential, which means voltage, was high enough, the air would ionize and become conducting. Convenient, isn't it? And what's more, he discovered that this ionization effect tends to shoot straight up, making it perfect for vertical transmission. This is how Tesla managed to create a 132-foot artificial lightning bolt, which was heard 15 miles away in Colorado Springs.
But in experimenting with these high potential discharges, which I was always producing, I discovered a wonderful thing. I found, namely, that the air, which had been behaving like an insulator, suddenly became like a conductor. That is, when subjected to these great electrical stresses, it broke down, and I obtained discharges which were not accountable for by the theory that the air was an insulator. When I calculated the effects, I concluded that this must be due to the potential gradient at a distance from the electrified body. Subsequently, I came to the conviction that it would ultimately be possible without any elevated antenna, with very small elevation, to break down the upper stratum of the air and transmit the current by conduction. A ray of great ionizing power is used to give to the atmosphere great powers of conduction. A high-tension current of 10 million to 12 million volts is then passed along the ray to the upper strata of the air, which strata can be broken down very readily and will conduct electricity very well.
So, what does this mean? Tesla would send up a high voltage pulse, tuned to a multiple of the Schumann resonance, approximately 7.8 Hz, in which he had calculated to be around 8 Hz. Again, correct. This pulse would ionize the air up to the 5-mile mark, creating a conductive path. Once there, the wave would travel around the Earth with minimal resistance. As the wave returned to its origin, Tesla would send another pulse, just like hitting a tether ball at the perfect moment to increase its energy. This process would build up a lasting electromagnetic field in the atmosphere, one that could be tapped into and brought back down to Earth using the same equipment that created it. Tesla had done it. He had discovered not one, but 2 methods of transmitting energy wirelessly across the globe. He had built the apparatus to receive it, and he had developed his famous Magnifying Transmitter. And with this, he returned to New York to begin the building of his ultimate laboratory, the Wardenclyffe Tower. And who better to fund the greatest project in human history than the most powerful man of the 20th century?
What could possibly go wrong if J.P. Morgan funded my plan? Whatever could go wrong? I guess you will have to subscribe to find out.
Part 2 of this episode is coming very soon. So, as Tesla has just said, don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell so you don't miss the next episode. And as always, thanks for watching. Until the next mystery, my friend.